What up, people? I am back for another video. Today, I am reviewing the movie Stay Alive. My friend Steve recommended me this a couple weeks ago, and I figured why not review it. I watched it on Monday, but I was already, doing the list that day, so I just figured why not? I'll just do it on Wednesday. But figured why not check it out? And it's pretty good. I know a little bit about the story of Elizabeth Bathory. That's who the story's based. Granted, they changed a lot of it. So that's definitely one. Some of the lore was kind of there. And there's some bad acting moments. Mainly from, I like Frankie Muniz. I think his character's name is Swink. I think is his actual character's name in the movie. And I just don't think he works. I like Frankie Muniz, but he doesn't work for horror. Some actors just cannot pull off being scared. I just don't think he did. He was like probably the weakest. I think if you had recasted him, and I get it, he was a bigger name at the time, so they're like, oh, it's Frankie Muniz, we'll throw him in the movie. And I just don't think he worked. Everyone else relatively worked. Abigail didn't really work for me. I would have, honestly, the chick who played October, I would have swapped. I'd have the chick who played October be Abigail. She was far more compelling as an actress, but everything else relatively worked. It gave me kind of like Final Destination vibes. So basically, the premise is there's this game called Stay Alive, which, for dumbing it down, basically is just you play it the way you die in the game, you die in real life. So it has a little bit of like Nightmare on Elm Street because you killed in your dreams, you die in real life, but also has Final Destination just because the scenes where they're first realizing what's happening, it gave me that kind of vibe. So a different group plays the game and they all die. And then we meet our main group: Hutch, Abigail, I think Swink, October, and their other friend who gets killed in the office. And basically they all start dying and they have to try to figure out a way. They look into Elizabeth Bathory and realize her fear of mirrors, and even a cop gets killed, Detective King, which they were useless. They were probably another element I would have thrown out of the movie. I get it, it's a horror movie, and Final Destination, you have those cop characters, but at least they were useful. Even in 5, I felt like the cop characters were useful. I didn't really feel like these cops in this movie were useful. They were not needed. It felt like the Detective King was just there to be another body count, just to add to the body count. I didn't really feel like he needed to be in the movie. Even the other cop, it was just so. That's why I have to give this film a 7, because there is a little bit of issues, but I do like the kills and I love the premise. I like the whole concept of you play this game, you die in real life, you die. You die and then you die in the game, you die in real life. It's an interesting premise. I just think you needed stronger characters a little bit, some better direction. Probably don't change Elizabeth Bathory's story either. Trying to make it into Georgia. I didn't need all that. I think if you just stuck to the accurate story, would have been more interesting, and you just make it virtual. I think that's the only thing I would have changed. But aside from that, I still think it is a good movie. You have some solid kills, and that's why I'm giving it a 7, because it's still a good premise, and it is watchable. I don't think it's like a bad movie. I think there are certain things that kind of hold it from being great, So, but yeah. So tomorrow I'm gonna be reviewing Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I fucking love that movie. That movie is one of the best Dracula. Gary Oldman is one of those. He's probably my favorite. Between him and Tim Curry. That's what I meant to say. Between him and Tim Curry are like two of my favorite character actors. The way they just like morph into their characters. They don't just feel like, oh, this is just Gary. No. Gary Oldman became Dracula. He's not my favorite Dracula. I would still say Bela Lugosi is, but he is just fucking close second. Gary Oldman became Dracula, even though he's not the design I'm used to. Although the scene he cleans up looks fucking great, and I think he plays the character great. It's just a great period piece too. So I'll be reviewing that tomorrow. But yeah, let's get into Staying Alive. Stay Alive, not Staying Alive, not to be confused with the Bee Gees song. friends start playing this game, Stay Alive, in the beginning of the film. They all slowly start getting killed when each of them die in the game. They then start dying in real life. Then I thought this was a cool little opening to kind of set the tone of what's going to happen. And then this is where we meet our actual main characters. They learn of this game, Stay Alive, and they want to play it. So they all agree to play it together. Though one of them has to go to work, so they'll play from the office. So they all log in, and some of the video game parts do look dated. It probably looked good for the time. Like, this came out in 2006, so it probably looked good for then. Just watching it now, yeah, it looks dated in some parts, but it works. I get what they were trying to go for, and it could have looked worse, to be honest. So it was fine. So they all start playing. You know, they fight through like a graveyard. Like, it feels like an actual video game. So like, okay, I like this. And then one of them ends up getting separated. The Countess. Well, because I think before the ritual starts, they have to do this, recite this prayer, which actually starts not just the game. It basically sets up, you know. I think the other problem, going into it really quick, is with this movie, I really wanted more lore. And they kind of fucked up the lore with Elizabeth Bathory, but not just that lore. Even just going into the game itself, I kind of wanted more of an inside look at this game. You know, I think they could have did a little bit more there. Because to me, I don't like when somebody just introduces a cool concept like this, and then they don't, not necessarily, I don't need it explained. I just kind of want to go into it a little bit and give us a little bit of something about it. I think, because it's such a cool concept, and you don't have that. It would have been kind of cool for like Final Destination, like those moments where they all realize, okay, we're all, you know, Death's plan and all that. I kind of wanted something like that for this movie, and I think this movie needed it. I just felt like they didn't really go into it all the way like I wanted them to. But it's still a good movie. It's another criticism. But yeah, so they all start playing. The one in the office ends up getting killed by the Countess, and then in real life, he ends up getting stabbed to death by a woman that resembles, I'll just say Elizabeth, or the Countess as the game calls her. And then they initially decide to stop playing the game. But then, the detectives, King and, I can't think of the other cop's name. They were such useless characters. It was like, they were just like, okay, this is a horror movie, we gotta have our obligatory cop characters, and it just felt like that's why they were there. There was no reason for them to actually be in the movie. They didn't actually offer anything. King is just there just to end up becoming a body count, because he looks into the game, and like there was that scene where he goes to the game store and talks with the clerk. That would have been kind of cool if he wanted to give us a little bit more about the game, if they did that, but they didn't. That was a waste of a scene. It's like, you could have really that's why I think this movie is a little frustrating. I like it. It's a little frustrating because it's like, you have such a cool concept and you don't like fully go into it and like explore it. And I wanted more of that. And I just didn't really feel like they really did, you know? It's just very almost surface level. So the next one to get murdered is, I think Detective King, because he ends up playing the game. And at this point, this is where Hutch and Abigail, they're all like basically realizing the game is alive, so they have to stop playing. So they kind of separate. I think Abigail goes with Hutch while Swink goes with October. And they're basically looking into Elizabeth Bathory, and that's like the closest kind of lore we get is that, but they don't really even get it right, though, from what I've been told by people who actually know about Elizabeth Bathory. So they didn't even really get the story right. You know, maybe they could have just made an original character that's somewhat like Elizabeth Bathory as like just for this movie, instead of just using her if you're not even gonna do her lore accurately. But then yeah, so the next one gets murdered after King. I think it's October, because at this point the game is starting to basically have a mind of its own, which they don't really explain how it does. But it's a horror movie. Little things like that I can't get over, because I'm not expecting logic and all horror, but I do think like there needs to. I just need a little explanation. They all come back to the house and realize October is missing. They look for her. They find her, but before they are able to save her, she gets killed by the Countess, who isn't real. She's like a ghost. So she gets her throat slit. So her death is pretty sad. And I actually believe she should have been the co-lead, not Abigail. I found her boring. Between her and then Swink, my problem with him is more the casting. I like Frankie Muniz. I'm gonna say it again. He doesn't fit horror movies like this. I couldn't take him seriously. I felt like he was playing a character in like a different movie. Some actors just cannot pull off being in certain genres. They're like Michael Cera. Would you put him in like a lead in an action movie? No. Certain actors can't do certain roles, and I think he was, even though he's a side character in this, it's not like he's a main character. And I guess he was somewhat the comic relief, and maybe that's why they got him. But I don't know. I feel like you could have gotten somebody else who could have pulled it off a little bit more. So I think, yeah, he's the next one who ends up getting killed. So they have to figure out a way to stop Elizabeth in the game. So they end up doing that by they use the computer mirror, which, okay, this part was kind of dumb. That eventually basically seemingly kills Elizabeth in the final act, because they go to like her grave, and while Hutch goes to her grave while Elizabeth is attacking a Countess, as the movie. Like, you could have just made the Countess an original character, but anyway. The Countess chases Abigail, nearly kills her, but they manage to use like a the mirror reflection from the computer, or like a laptop. I don't see how that would work, but anyway, which kills the Countess, and then everything seems fine, and then the next thing we see the game being sold and it being set up. So it's basically almost like sequel bait. So, but overall, man, it's a good little flick. It has its issues. I think they could have, if you're not going to do the story right with Elizabeth Bathory, you should have just made an original character that's like based off of her just for this movie. I also Swink should have been recasted. Abigail I found to be kind of boring. I think October should have been the co-lead instead of her. I thought the kills were good, but my problems, I really wanted more lore from the game specifically. Like, I just felt like they kind of did it surface level. And that's what made Final Destination work, is how they really go into Death's plan and all of that. Like, they go into it, and that's what made it work. And I felt like this one, almost only surface level did I really feel like it touched on it. I didn't really feel like it went into it like I wanted it to. It's not a badly made movie. I think the kills are good. I like some of the video game scenes, even though some of them are kind of dated looking, but it needed more. And that's kind of what makes it a little frustrating. But overall, it's still a decent flick. I definitely recommend it. It's only an hour and a half. It's a good concept there. Just some of the execution isn't great, but it's a 7 out of 10 is kind of where I'm sitting. So anyway, tomorrow, Bram Stoker's Dracula review. But other than that, nothing else today. But yeah, guys, take a quick shout before I end the video.